right, ladies and gents, get into it today. So earlier this morning, I was reading an article on NewYorkPost.com by Joel Sherman, right? Potential trade scenarios, as far as with Stanton and, Stanton and the Yankees trying to move that 7 years that's still on the contract, 218, still owed to him. Two teams were actually very interesting. The Padres being one of them, where you move him in the money or partial money to San Diego. You take Eric Hosmer back and you take Will Myers. The only issue with that I see here is Hosmer plays first base. You already have Voit and you have Mike Ford playing first. But it does open up the DH position from a standpoint that you could put Voit at DH, you could have Ford DH, you could have Hosmer DH at times. It would also spell Judge a day off, at least a half a day off. And the other one, and this is where I would make this move. Now, obviously, the two NL teams, and this is if the NL adopts the DH rule, which at this point they probably are going to do, is to the Cubs. And in return, you get Yu Darvish, Jason Hayward, and you get Craig Kimbrell, right? So you improve your starting rotation, you get another arm in the bullpen, and then you have a guy you could put in the outfield to spell, Judge a day off. You could put him in left and give Gardner and Frazier a day off, whatever you have to do, right? Or you could just use him as a trade piece once you get him and flip him for somebody else. The Cubs is where I would definitely make that move. It makes more sense because, again, if you can't get Trevor Bauer and you get Yu Darvish, now it's a matter of which Yu Darvish you're going to get. Are you going to get the Yu Darvish that pitched lights out this year, or are you going to get the Yu Darvish of years past where it's been, hit or miss and just crappy? But if I'm Cashman and you're talking to the Cubs, that's about the package you would get. You'd have to take Kimbrel's money in return, and the Cubs would have to pay Stanton, which is more than fine. You probably have to take Darvish's deal too. But that's to be expected. You're going to have to take undesirable contracts back when you're trying to get rid of one. And it's just, you're just going to have to do that. And then going on to football now, because it's still football season. Again, the Ravens, the other day they put 7 guys on the COVID list. A lot of big key defensive guys, Patrick Queen, L.J. Ford, another one. A couple other guys, forget the names. But, and then this morning you find out that the Niners closed their facility because, Kendrick Bourne goes and gets COVID. I shouldn't say goes and gets COVID, but he tested positive for it. Where or how he got it, so, they do the whole contract tracing protocol. As of right now, that game's still on. The NFL isn't going to cancel a game because of one positive test. But the Packers had a couple, but that's been going on over the course of a few days. I think A.J. Dillon now tested positive as well, I think last night or the day before. I don't think the NFL cancels this game. And if they do, obviously it's going to get moved because, they'll probably make it a Monday night game or a Tuesday night game, like they've been doing. And, now, and then with that now, they're expanding the COVID protocols as far as now you have to wear masks on the sidelines. And you would think that they would have been doing that already. You would have thought if the coaches got to wear masks on the sidelines, not every coach, every position, even the water boy, water girl, whatever it is, that they're wearing the masks the whole game. Well, at least you think they are. You got the referees wearing the masks, but the players sitting on the bench aren't. So you wonder how it's really being spread. And the fact that Marlon Humphrey played with it and everybody was in close contact with him, I'm surprised they didn't have more positive tests because they had no negatives today, which, it's a good thing. Even though I have my hatred for the Ravens, you don't want to see anybody get this, virus. And but again, you would think that they would have had that mandated when they came out with this protocol. Listen, if you're not on the field, you got to have a mask on. Nobody's socially distancing on the bench. You see it every week in and week out. It doesn't matter if it's the Chargers, Broncos. It doesn't matter what game it is. Nobody's socially distancing. You even have to wear masks now during post-game interaction, which, you would think they would have that in there already. But, now they're adding it in. They're going to add that in. You'll see that enforced this weekend, of course. But again, it's just something that why wasn't this done since week one? It's totally mind-boggling to me. Um, which also leading to mind-boggling is Joe Douglas's press conference yesterday. Um, Two things stuck out with me. Being an outsider, not a Jet fan, the fact that he thinks Adam Gase is part of the solution. I guess you don't realize he's part of the problem. Um, because again, what has he done since he's been here? Nothing. He's done nothing. You're 0-8. You're about to be 0-9 because let's put it this way: there's no way New England loses this game. New England could go out with me being at wide receiver or quarterback, and they're still going to beat the Jets. Um, you know, you could go out there. You can go out there with the little Giants football team starting for the Patriots, and they're going to beat the Jets. That's just how pathetic this Jets season has become. Joe Douglas did take accountability for some things, that he misjudged the market with Robbie Anderson. It's glad you finally realize that now, going into only week 9, but it's glad you realize that now, Joe Douglas. Now if only you can get Adam Gase to take accountability for misusing Le'Veon Bell, you probably still have him. And then the other thing, knowing the way the season's going, the Jets probably won't get a win at all, right? So they're going to wind up the number 1 pick. If the season ended today, they obviously have the number 1 pick. And Joe Douglas said that Darno is his quarterback. Not just this year, but for the future. This is the future quarterback of this team. Then who are you drafting with the number 1 pick? Who? I'd love to know. Or are you going to trade it? What deal are you going to make? Because now if you're not going to draft Trevor Lawrence, if you're going to stick with Darno and you're going to build this team around Darno, now who are you going to draft the number 1 pick to? And I'm curious because there's going to be teams clamoring for it that are going to need a quarterback. I wouldn't be surprised if they made a deal with New England. That would just be the dumbest move ever. That would be a gentleman-like move to trade a number 1 pick within your division, especially to a rival such as New England, who's probably going to look for a new quarterback anyway. They got to trade that pick to somewhere in the NFC. I don't care who it's to in the NFC, but you don't trade that one in the AFC. Because now, if you do trade the pick, you're going to get whatever you want for it. You can get you could flip-flop picks in the first round and probably get an offensive weapon or two or a defensive weapon or two. You hold all the cards at the number 1 pick. But if you're saying that Darno is your future quarterback and you're building around him and you still draft Trevor Lawrence, you think Trevor Lawrence is sitting on the bench for 5-6 years? He's not going to do that. Sorry. Trevor Lawrence is on that level of, you're drafted, you're not sitting on the bench, you start right away. He's not going to sit on somebody's bench. He's NFL ready at this point as far as I'm concerned. And speaking of Trevor Lawrence, he's not playing against Notre Dame, but I'm surprised he's traveling with the team. And that's going to be an interesting game, Clemson versus Notre Dame. Like I said, if Clemson loses a game this year, that's the game they lose. Otherwise, then they just run the table. And the other thing, and I really hate talking about Antonio Brown, but NFL Twitter ripped ESPN for this segment on the whole Antonio Brown saga. And I get, it was Monday night, Tampa's playing. How are you going to avoid it? How is ESPN going to avoid it? ESPN talks about anything and everything they possibly can. If Antonio Brown went to the bathroom the wrong way, they would have made a segment about it. They even talked about how Brady and Brown are living together. Apparently that was one of the conditions of Brown signing was that he had to live at Tom Brady's house, apparently. I don't know, that's just weird to me. Very, very weird, Brady and Brown living in the same house. You could probably make a sitcom out of that one, or a reality TV show. So it would be interesting to see how they interact off the field as opposed to on the field. For those who like reality TV, I'm sure you'd love that one. But again, like going back to the Jets though, if Darno is your future quarterback, then why weren't you putting weapons around him last year or this year for that matter? I get you wanted to get money off the books, but even when you had the money, you misused it to get guys that you went and you could have re-signed Robbie Anderson. You had to go and get Perriman. You could have had Robbie Anderson with Mims, and that probably would have been a dangerous combo, assuming Mims could have started the season healthy, which he couldn't, and that's kind of what hurt Darno a little bit because he was limited in the weapon role on offense. And not only that, Gase handicaps you because, you know, just misused Le'Veon Bell again. And I think, and somebody said to me, you know, Kansas City's misusing them too, and I don't really think they are. I think they're just going with the hot hand with Edwards down there. And, you know, Bell's going to get his feet. But Bell, listen, Bell's there is just an insurance policy. You know, that's pretty much it. You know, if this kid gets hurt, Bell can step right in and take over, take the carries and help him win games. It's really just an insurance policy, but that's just how you got to look at it. Anywhere he would have signed, you know, even if he signed in Chicago, it would have been, actually in Chicago he might have been a starter because I think Montgomery's out the whole year. I know one of their running backs went down, and speaking of the Bears, Javon Wims tried to appeal that suspension, which is now a 2-game suspension. Do I think that's a good enough suspension for what he did? I think it should have been 3, but, you know, at least the NFL did something about it, and you had to in that regard. You know, I don't care what happened the play before, because apparently now he ripped Anthony Miller's mouthpiece out, this Anderson guy, whatever his name is on the Saints, and that's why Wims did what he did. Still not warranted, still no need for it. You know, it's just childish nonsense you don't need in a game, and it just makes it, you know, and it hurts your team because now for 2 games they don't have you as an offensive weapon. And Rex Ryan came out and said that they should have never benched Trubisky, and many people don't agree with Rex Ryan, but Rex Ryan's very outspoken, and I happen to agree with a lot of Rex Ryan says at times. And this is one of them. You were 3-0, and I get Trubisky makes his mistakes, you know, like any other quarterback. But when you're 3-0, you can't bench the guy. You just got to take him to the sun. Be like, listen, look at what you're doing. You got those tablets there for a reason. Show him his mistakes, and that's how you learn. I think this week you got to go back to Trubisky. Foles is showing that he's not the starter that he became in Philly. You know, I think that was just right timing. You know, on Wentz getting hurt and Foles stepping in, it was just the right situation at the time. And you know, now I'm not saying Foles again, not shitting on Foles at all. Foles is a decent quarterback, but he's just not a starting quarterback. And, you know, and the same could be said in Miami with Fitzpatrick. He was never really a starting quarterback, you know, but then he came to the Jets and he was a starter, and he didn't do too bad with the Jets. Even Brandon Marshall came out and said he loved his time with the Jets and it was his favorite team to play for, mainly because of Fitzpatrick, because he brings that energy, you know, and not only that, Fitzpatrick is he's a smart guy. The guy went to friggin' Harvard, or Princeton, some Ivy League school he went to, and And you've seen it, like, when they put Tua in the game against the Jets, and he's hyping however many people they had there, he was hyping them up. And then to find out you're getting benched for Tua, which leading to that is, you know, you got the Sunday games this week. Cardinals, Dolphins, Tua versus Kyler Murray. The edge goes to Kyler Murray in this one. Unless Miami's defense plays the way they did against the Rams. Otherwise, sorry, the Dolphins just don't win that game. You got Giants, Redskins, the Washington football team. Giants need this game is, you know, now Jones is pretty much playing for his career, as everybody's writing about now. I don't think he's playing for his career. I think at this point you have 8 games left. He's trying to salvage the season at this point. You know, hopefully Jones learned from the mistakes, you know, this past game. Kyle Allen is like the first Redskin quarterback. Sorry, again, the Washington football team. He's the first quarterback to play against the Giants, you know, both games this year. And I think the first time in like a few years, actually, other than Kirk Cousins doing it. Which, you know, in that regard, you have Cousins versus Stafford this week. Vikings have won the last 5 meetings between them, and I think you make this the 6th one. I think Justin Jefferson is a bounce-back game. And I think Dalvin Cook just runs all over that Lions defense. And then also, going back to the Giants for a minute here, and I read this too, that Golden Tate's wife came out and she had some things to say, and I really didn't read what she said. I'm sure it was, pretty much complaining about her husband's role on the team, and he's come out and voiced his frustrations apparently. Now, I get you frustrated with your role on the team, but you can't sit there if you're a Giants fan and put it all on Daniel Jones. Because again, when your offensive line's not protecting Jones, how's he supposed to get the ball out to his receivers? You can't. Can't do it. And so Golden Tate's got to, everybody on that Giants team's got to take accountability as well for how horrible their season's going. And and the same on the Jets. They all got to look at themselves in the mirror and be like, listen, we got to play better than how we're playing. It's it's just that's what they got to do. And then, as I look at because I wrote down all the games for this weekend. Obviously, you got Saints, Buccaneers. If the Saints don't win this game, the NFC South is Brady's. It's just clear as day. You get Antonio Brown reinstated for that game, so that gives you another weapon. As the fifth wheel, you could say. It's gonna be interesting to see what Brown does. Does Michael Thomas play this week? If Michael Thomas plays this week, you get Brees' favorite offensive weapon back. Kamara's going to have to run all over that defense, which Tampa's defense is vastly improved, especially Todd Bowles is doing amazing things down there with that defense. I mean, you got Sue, you got this Golston guy, you got Barrett down there. They're just that's a scary defense right now. And Jason Pierre-Paul's kind of turning back into the old Jason Pierre-Paul as well. So that's going to be an interesting Sunday night game. And then, as I look over the games here, you got Texans-Jaguars, which is pretty much, at this point, doesn't matter who wins because they got no shot at the playoffs anyway. Gardner Minshew's not playing, so they're starting their rookie quarterback. Nobody knows how long Minshew's going to be out for. It's a thumb injury or something like that. I think this is the game the Texans need to kind of salvage the season. Jaguars at this point, I think, are just playing for a good draft pick. And then Ravens-Colts. Ravens-Colts is interesting because let's see how the Ravens play after they got beat. Does Lamar Jackson go back to how he was last season, MVP type caliber year, or do they lose again? Honestly, I hope they lose again, and that's just from a standing standpoint. Because pretty much if they lose, the AFC North, pretty much you just hand us the AFC North title right now. You should pretty much just hand it to us now anyway. Because the Steelers-Cowboy game, now I read they benched DiNucci. They're either going with Cooper Rush or this Garrett Gilbert. They're both getting first-team reps this week. I really don't care who you put at quarterback. Neither one of them are going to be able to handle what's coming on the defensive side of the ball from Pittsburgh. They're just not. I feel bad for both of them. Chances are you see another injured quarterback in this game, and probably both getting injured. And then who's going to be throwing the ball? Zeke Elliott? Okay, good luck with that one. Seahawks, Bills, another good one. Pretty much the Bills need this game just to, solidify the fact that they're going to win the AFC East. But I don't think the Seahawks right now are on, they're, other than the loss to Arizona, they're just on an incredible roll. Russell Wilson is having an MVP type year. If the season ended today, I give him the MVP. To be honest with you, I mean, I don't think anybody has nowhere near the numbers that he has this year. And then I read that Russell Wilson spends over $1 million a year on recovery of his body. That shows you how serious he takes his profession and how he's trying to prolong his career. Hey, if I had $1 million to throw around on my body, so I'd freaking look a lot better than I do now. That's for sure. And you got the Raiders-Charger game. Interesting fact as far on the Charger side, Justin Herbert's thrown every game for average of 303 yards, which is the highest rookie passing yardage ever. how I see the outcome of that game is the Chargers will probably have like they'll have a lead. They'll blow the lead as usual, throw up on themselves, and Derek Carr will drive back and win the game for them. This is a game the Raiders need to win in order to keep their playoff hopes alive at this point. And then Panthers Chiefs, whatever the spread is, just bet the Chiefs. That's it. That defense is not stopping Mahomes, you're not stopping Kelsey, you're not stopping Tyreek Hill, you're not stopping Edwards, you're just not stopping them. I'd be surprised if the Chiefs got tripped up in this game, but like I said, I highly doubt it. If you bet in the game, take the Chiefs points. I'd probably take the over as well. Bears Titans. This is a bounce back game for the Titans, obviously, after getting smacked around by the Bengals of all teams. They need this game, obviously, but the Bears need it too, as far as their playoff push. Again, you start Trubisky at this point. What do you got to lose? Matt Nagy, you got to get it right in Chicago somehow. You wanted to go to Foles because the fans were clamoring for Foles. Now those same fans are clamoring for Trubisky back. That's just the nature of the NFL in general. Fans 1 minute want this guy, and then when he sucks, they want to go back to the guy who originally sucked, in their opinion. It's always back forth, and that's just what's to be expected from any fan base, from any NFL team at this point. Broncos Falcons at this point. I can see the Falcons finding another way to blow this game. I mean, this is the worst start in the Matt Ryan era, other than I think like 2008, I believe. And I think I don't think Ridley's going to play in this game. I don't know the severity of the ankle injury. I think he's questionable at this point. And what's interesting is that McKinley of the Falcons wanted to get traded. Apparently he's not happy with the situation there or the situation in general in Atlanta. They decided not to trade him. He goes on social media, rants, raves. Raheem Morrison says that he's going to be held accountable for it. Whatever that means, who knows? Probably a fine. And speaking of fines, this is the dumbest thing that I heard. Juju Smith-Schuster and James Conner get fined $5,000 apiece for not wearing socks correctly. Are you friggin' serious? $5,000 for not wearing your socks right? Like there's a protocol of how to wear socks in the NFL. Are you friggin' kidding me? I was utterly amazed at that one. That's just so asinine. You could fine them for that, but yet we don't know what the punishment for the Raiders is yet, and we don't know what the punishment's going to be for Marlon Humphrey playing with COVID, with no test result going into Sunday's game. Okay, you know what? That's just retarded. Retarded on every level. So stupid. $5,000 a piece. And it's funny because Juju even posted, and he'll probably get fined for doing this too. He posted on Instagram and probably on Twitter and everywhere else the fine letter, and he said, "Yeah, they fined me for this." That's just ridiculous. You can't punish teams for breaking COVID protocol correctly, but you can punish people for not wearing socks. All right, you know what, Goodell, get your head out of your ass. Seriously, that was just stupid fine. Like, I get the NFL's losing money because they don't have the amount of fans, but for socks, come on, really? I never knew in all my years of wearing socks that there was a way to wear socks in the NFL because it wasn't covering part of your lower leg. What's next? A fine because you didn't wear your jersey tucked in correctly? Come on. See, come on. Really? Come on. You literally got to laugh at that. Whether you're a Steeler fan or not, you got to laugh at that. That is so stupid. That's literally like fining, and that's the other thing. What was the fine for Wims? Because I can't find that fine anywhere either. I get the 2-game suspension, but shouldn't there be a hefty fine for it? Yet I've not managed to find that fine information anywhere. But you could go out and fine guys for not wearing socks. Why don't we worry about more important things other than how Juju and Conner wear their socks, all right? What are you going to do? You're going to fine Tomlin for how he wears his headset next? Come on. Just enough. Why don't you worry about the more important things like the COVID protocols, or you worry about friggin' socks? It's just. Why don't you worry about the horrible officiating too, and all the missed calls in every single game, I mean, I'm literally watching the NFL Network earlier, and they're showing highlights of different games, and I could count 10 missed penalty calls in a matter of 2 minutes. It's just insane. And then again, to go back, speaking of horrible officiating, I'm sorry, but the end of the Giant Buccaneer game, I'm sorry, that's pass interference. If you watch it closely, he has his hand on Dion Lewis's hand, preventing him from even trying to make an attempt to try to haul it in, even one-handed. I get the ball hits Winfield. You could say it's a bang-bang play. Refs threw the flag. You knew the minute they had a freaking 15-minute conversation, sipping their espresso in the corner and chit-chatting like a bunch of chatty Cathys over there. You knew the flag was coming back. You just knew it. And then again, even in that game, you had Cameron Brate, with his helmet leading into the Giants defender, and then they called on the Giant defender. I don't know what game these officials are watching. What game are you watching, or are you just off in La La Land, like, I like to tell you the rabbits, George, and then all of a sudden when something happens, you just throw a flag and you just make it up. And I'm curious, I wish there was a hot mic for when these officials have these talks of who they're going to call it on. They can't even call penalties on the right guy. Can't call penalties on the right guy. You know how many times this Sunday they call a penalty on one guy and it was the other guy, like a neutral zone infraction? They called on a guy who was sitting on the friggin' bench. Come on, get it right. And some of these officials, I'm sorry, they're just too flag happy. Listen again, and I know I say everybody says it. I get you got to call the penalties. I understand that, but do we have to call ticky-tack penalties all the time? Do we really have to? The officiating, I think, week after week has gotten so horrible. It's just so horrible. And, and especially when it's a Pittsburgh game, it's even worse. Because there's always penalties that are missed, and you can say, oh, you're just saying it because it's your team. Listen, it's every team. It's every team. I've seen it. I've seen it happen in Giants games. I've even seen it in Jet games. I've seen it in even Bengal games, Browns games, you name it. I've seen missed pass interference calls that are blatantly obvious, and they don't call it. And then, and then these commentators, they just make up something. But Tony Romo, he got it right when they finally decided to throw a pass interference flag on the Ravens, and he goes, well, it's about time they threw one. It is about time. Again, if you're gonna call it on one side, then you got to call it on the other. It's just simple as that. Like I could officiate a game from the couch. I literally can. Every time you see somebody break off for a big run, you see the flag. You already know it's offensive holding every single time. It's just a dead giveaway. Some of these calls, and then like when you see these they call, I forget what game it was, and they call a holding call, and literally all the guy did, his hand went across the jersey. Where did he hold him? Please explain that to me. Where did he hold him? You got these officials that some of them are too flag happy, some are not throwing flags at all, which I'd rather that. If you're not going to call pass interference on my team, and you don't call it on the other team, I'm fine with that. Let them play the game. This is a physical game. I understand that there's rules to it, but you got to make it fair across the board. And especially when you have these replays and again you still can't get it right. And it all really goes back to again, the Dez Bryant catch. That's a catch. You literally had to have a rule in place to define what a catch is. You literally had to have a rule set in place for what constitutes a football move. As far as fumbles go. And then the fact that they literally made up a rule in the middle of the game with the Patriot Raider game way back when, is another one. It's just, I don't get it. I think at the end of the year, Goodell needs to get together with the officiating crews, and maybe they need to go back to officiating school and learn the rules of the game again. Maybe, and what's funny is though, is that players get held accountable, right, for criticizing the officials, whether it's in the NFL, NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball. But when are these officials held accountable for horrible calls? How many times have you heard over the course of the past 3-4 years during the season where the NFL officials will come out and say, yeah, we blew that call. Yeah, we missed that call. Where's the accountability? I've not once heard like a Ed Hockley get fined and suspended, or or all these other officials. Never heard it. Never heard it. But yet you can literally fine a guy for speaking his mind, and speaking the truth for that matter. Again, it just amazes the ever living shit out of me how these officials are never held accountable for some of the horrible officiating. Like, seriously, and going back to the Steeler-Patriot game, when Jesse James caught it, yeah, again, he caught the friggin' ball 1,000,001 times. Everyone's seen the replay 500 million times. Everybody keeps posting on Twitter all the time. He caught the friggin' ball. There's even a shirt out there that says Jesse caught the ball, okay? Now, where was the accountability in that? Right? Okay, so let's go through it again. Jesse James catches the ball. He dives for it. He hits the ground. He fumbled the ball himself and still recovered it in the end zone. How is that an incomplete pass? He made a football move during it. How? But then you have the same play in the Super Bowl that same year. That's a catch. That's ruled a touchdown, though. That's ruled a touchdown. That's one of the many things, besides the fact that Atlanta choked that Super Bowl. You have a 28-3 lead. How the hell did you blow that? And the conspiracy theorists will say, well, the officials were against the Falcons, and yeah, you could say that, and things, for the past 20-plus years have gone in Brady's favor. I mean, hell, the Tuck rule. Come on, the Tuck rule. The Tuck rule. Another joke. And again, people have disagreed with me on it. I'm sorry, but if that was actually called a fumble the way it should have been called, the Raiders win that game. The Raiders probably win the Super Bowl that year. But again, let's just make up a rule. And you could say, Jim, you know what, that was years ago, but it's just the point. That's how far back this horrible officiating has gone. And then not only that, the missed pass interference in the Saint Ram game. That was pass interference as clear as day. The official's right there, and it's not called. But because the New Orleans Saints whined and cried about it, and and I understand it, but it got so bad to the point that Saints fans wanted to take the NFL to court and sue them. So they put this friggin', now we can replay pass interference penalties, right? Or missed pass interference calls. Okay, ready? Why was it not even 5% of them were overturned when they were clear and obvious? Why? And I even said it after the first 3 weren't overturned when that rule was implemented, that this rule goes away at the end of the year. And and I'm glad it did, because A, you slowed down the game, and B, if you called it pass interference, if you didn't call it on the field, and then the coach throws a flag, it's as clear as day. And it even goes back to Steelers Saints with Joe Hayden in the end zone. Where on God's green earth was that pass interference? I like to know what officials saw pass interference on that one. He didn't even touch the guy. He didn't even touch him. It's so atrocious. But yet, you know what though? Everybody still watches the NFL because it's the most popular sport in the world. It's the biggest moneymaker. The highest gamble. But these officials gotta be held accountable for their mistakes, the way players gotta be held accountable for their mistakes, and coaches gotta be held accountable. Goodell's got to enforce it. And maybe he's afraid to enforce it. I don't know. But if you need somebody to be on the disciplinary committee, hey, you know what? I'll gladly apply right now. You could hire me, and I'll tell you how you should discipline these bastards. That's for damn sure. You have these guys watching replays in some studio in New York on all these screens. You got all these different angles, right? And you still can't get that shit right. It's utterly insane. But then, even going back to that Saint Ram game with the pass interference, right? So the Saints wanted that game replayed from that point on. And it's funny because here's where it got replayed in overtime when you blew it. So, and I said it then, I'll say now, Saints fans just sounded like whiny little schoolgirls about it. And not only that, could you imagine if that went to the Supreme Court? New Orleans Saints fans versus the NFL. Who do you think really wins that one? Come on. Really? You're all going to get together down there in New Orleans and you're all going to chip in to pay for a lawyer and waste all that money just to lose? No. Um, but hopefully this weekend we have some decent officiated games. Uh, they even said it on one of the pregame shows, like the Fox pregame show, I think for like a Thursday night football game a few weeks back, and Mike Pereira said it, because he's the rules analysis guy for Fox, and Gene Steratore for CBS. I forget who the guy is for NBC, and John Parry does it on the Monday night game. And Mike Pereira said that a lot of the holding penalties went down some this year, and it's funny because it's actually accurate that they do miss a lot of calls, and him being a former official is admitting to knowing that there's a lot of missed calls. So if he's saying it, then where are these officials being held accountable? Again, I know it's a hard game. You can't call everything, but if it's happening right in front of your eyes and you still can't call it, I'm sorry, you got to be held accountable. You got to be held accountable. There was something else I wanted to touch on, and I forget what it was. As far as Steeler injuries, Cam Hayward, he says he's getting better and better each day. I don't think he's not going to play this Sunday, obviously. Alualu is going to miss a game or two. They said I think it's going to be longer. So Carlos Davis kid's going to have to step up in both their spots. Again, people keep questioning Avery Williamson's spot. Right now, he's the third guy behind Spillane, Vince Williams, and then it's Williamson. A lot of people think, though, that Williamson, once he gets used to the role, he's going to be the starter. I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. From the fact that if he learns the defense, then you could spell Spillane a little bit because, you got to give the hot hand a rest at some point. And plus, you got to keep him fresh for the playoffs anyway. I haven't heard much, speaking of that, I haven't heard much more into that with the expanded 16-team playoff, and if games are canceled because of Corona and not made up, that even number one seeds lose that bye week now. It hurts a team who's desperately going to need that bye week to rest and recoup from injuries. I don't think you take the bye week away from them. There was unfortunate circumstances where teams had to have bye weeks early, schedules had to get shuffled around to make up games. But again, just like in any other sport, they're playing under conditions that, they're playing in conditions of the unknown here. I don't think they get enough credit, whether it's, baseball, basketball, hockey, even football, that these guys are going out there and they're risking their own family safety to entertain us week in and week out. And, I think they need to get credit for that. Because we imagine a 2020 without finishing baseball, without finishing basketball, without finishing the NHL, without even having football. I would have went bullshit crazy if we didn't have football this year. I don't know what I would be doing on Sunday, but I would probably go stir crazy at that point. I think all of us would. I mean, there was only so much Korean baseball you could watch and so much cornhole championships you can watch. It got so bad to the point that they even had like dice counting on ESPN and marble counting and who could friggin' throw a ping pong ball the furthest or whatever the hell they had. But I think players in all sports should at least get the credit for that. They earned it, they deserve it. But reiterating, I'm going to go back to the baseball thing for a minute, with Stanton. Well, not even with Stanton. Something else I read, Sweeney Murdy wrote, I think on WFAN.com, I think he posted on there, the Sanchez problem. And I'll actually agree with what he said. He pretty much said, you don't make Sanchez the starting catcher anymore. You let it be Kyle Hichikawa, because Kyle Hichikawa has proved that he belongs and that he could start. Obviously, he's got great chemistry with Garrett Cole. He's got great chemistry with Jordan Montgomery, right? Okay. So you start him and you rotate them based on the pitching rotation. So obviously Garrett Cole's going to be number one starter, so Kyle's going to start that game. Let's say Tanaka's number two. Then you start Sanchez. You alternate it, and it doesn't put too much I think the issue is that Sanchez, I don't think, can handle the pressure of being the everyday catcher. And, and that happens with guys. They can't, some of them just can't handle, they're not built for it. But the Yankee fans to say, oh, let's trade him, he's done nothing. You're going to trade a guy with a cannon of an arm behind the plate who can crush a ball at any given moment. Um, you know, and I also read him and a couple other guys are going to go play winter ball. So obviously he's going to improve himself and get ready for next season. But again, it's a guy I'm not trading. I'm not trading him. I wouldn't trade him. Again, he's a homegrown Yankee. You know, those are guys you keep. Those are guys you build around. I'm not opposed to the Stanton deal. Again, I'll say it again. Him going to the Cubs makes the most sense because you're moving that contract, but you're also taking Darvish's money and Kimbrel's money. I don't think Hayward's really owed much. And the money you're taking back from them probably equals to what Stanton's getting anyway. So you would pretty much call that a wash at that point. You know, plus you get another pitcher if you strike out on getting Bauer or Morton. You get another relief pitcher because K-Line is now a free agent because they optioned him for assignment. He refused it, so now he's on the free agent market. Sure, the Yankees might go and try to re-sign him, you know, for less money. Another thing I read was, you know, as far as keeping Brett Gardner, I don't think Brett Gardner's going to go anywhere. I think Brett Gardner's going to be a Yankee. I think this would be Gardner's last season, though. And if it is, hopefully we can get another World Series out of it with him. You know, let him go out on top. The same way, you know, with Roethlisberger in Pittsburgh. Hopefully we get number 7 this season and next year and let him go out on top. You know, and then to kind of jump back with the Jets for a minute. It's still mind-boggling how you think that Adam Gase is part of the solution. I don't get that. So you're agreeing then, Joe Douglas, that misusing Le'Veon Bell is irrelevant. I get you owned up to, you owned up to your mistake with the whole Robbie Anderson free agent market. Although you should have known what you had with him because you watched him play. You know, and Adam Gase knew what he had because he watched him play. So why wouldn't you just re-sign him? It's not like Robbie Anderson was going to command all this money on the free agent market. Unless you were listening to rumor mills, you know, thinking he's going to get $70, $80 million. No, he got what was fair for him, and that's 4 years, $40 million, and the Jets could have paid that. Again, you have more wins this year if you knew how to utilize Bell. Gase didn't know how to do it, and you own up to it. He's got to own up to it. Again, it's accountability, and you know, and that's just it. Again, you know, I know this jumps around with the video. I'm still, you know, trying to work on everything, but there's so many topics that I want to hit. I try to write some of it down so I don't lose track of where I'm going, but, you know, then when things just pop in my head, you know, I just jump back and forth into it. You know, the Jet-Patriot game, I don't understand why it's got to be a Monday night game. It holds no interest whatsoever. Obviously, obviously you couldn't move it to Thursday now because it would just be too short of notice. That's something I probably would have done after the Monday night game. But who knew that Kendrick Bourne was gonna, you know, test positive for COVID? You know, even in Denver now, John Elway tested positive for COVID. So they've had to stay away from the facility. You know, they're doing everything virtual. You know, and now you're going to see the players wear masks on the sidelines, which, again, should have been done since week 1. I think you're 9 weeks too late on putting that in there. And, you know, we'll just wait and see what happens. It's going to be, you know, the next few weeks of football is going to be interesting. Who's going to stop the Seahawks? Honestly, I think the Seahawks run the table. They beat everybody they got to face. They pretty much locked up the NFC West at this point. Pretty much to get to the Super Bowl, it goes to Seattle now. On the AFC side of it, right now, it's Pittsburgh and Kansas City. There's nobody else that I would really think it would go through. It's pretty much the AFC Championship's going to be Kansas City versus the Steelers at this point. I don't see them getting. I see, you know, obviously they're going to win the AFC North. They're going to get the first round. They're going to get the bye. You know, they'll beat whoever they got to beat. We'll probably wind up playing the Ravens. You know, and in the following round, because they're going to wind up getting a wild card out of it. And I told everybody before the season started, the Ravens were going to take a step back. They've shown you that they have. And your NFC Championship is probably going to be Seahawks Green Bay. I don't see it any other way. Unless Arizona stuns one of the two before it. And then you get your Super Bowl rematch, Seahawks Steelers, and with the Steelers winning it. That's my prediction on it. Other than that, I'm going to take off for now. I got a couple things I got to take care of. So, everybody, if you're watching, once I upload this and you're watching, go subscribe. Again, any questions, hit me up, jamesplotner82 at iCloud.com. I'm on Twitter, JP1382. I'm on Facebook. Again, let's just have fun with this shit. You want to talk sports with me, we talk sports. You want to debate, certain topics in sports, we could do that as well. And I think that's pretty much why I'm doing this, for no other reason than to, I'm just here to have fun with this. And that's about it. Till then, stay safe. Peace.